Wait.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the SLSBC meeting for September 18th. Due to some technical difficulties, we started a little bit late. I'm going to, I don't know if I'm going to be able to share my screen. Can everyone see the agenda?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to approve the prior meeting minutes. Has everyone had a chance to look at them, or have they been uploaded?
I don't think that those ones have been uploaded because I had to leave early for that one. I don't think that I sent those in.
So we'll
Yeah.
defer that. Okay, and the next item is to review and approve invoices. So this is going to be kind of a two-part process. The first part, I'm going to turn it over to Mark. Mark, do you want to talk about the amendment for Studio G?
Absolutely. Can I first ask Ryan, Zoom user one is Matt McCaffrey at our team. So
Okay.
just let him in. He's having trouble with the audio, but at least if you
Okay.
for that.
Okay. If
would
you
be
could just
great.
put his name down next time.
Yeah.
I'll promote him, but it would just, we got too many bombers on this, so.
Identify yourself. All right. Basically, as we've done in previous meetings, we want to go through the approval of invoices. And also we've got a couple of amendments that have been attached to the project going forward. And I just want to go through the process of where we are with the amendments. First invoice is basic services for Turner Townsend and Erie, in the amount of $18,678 for services provided in August. So do you want to vote on each individual one, or how do you want to go about that?
Mark, can you say that again? Which ones are we looking, what are we looking at again?
We're going through the invoices and then we're going to
Yep.
discuss the amendments. So
Okay,
first invoice is Turner Townsend and Erie for basic services for August, $18,678.
Hey,
Steve, do
Mark,
you have that?
I'm trying to share my screen, but it doesn't seem to be working.
We can see it, Steve. It's,
Oh, you can?
what's up is the Studio G. Yeah, what's up is the Studio G.
Yeah,
Invoice for 30.
Yeah,
Oh, there we go.
Yeah,
There you go.
so- yeah, there we go. Okay, so feasibility study for $18,678 is Turner and Townsend's invoice for August. And $45,000 is Studio G's basic services invoice for August. Do you want to vote on those first before we discuss the amendments?
Before we vote on that, I want to clarify this. The two invoices up above for $65.99 and $1,500 are already in the queue to be paid. So we're only voting on the two invoices listed here for $63,678. So is there any discussion, or is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
Second,
Approve.
Second it.
Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Michelle,
Yes. Michelle.
Steve Venuti,
Steve Venuti, yes.
Kelly,
Kelly Clenchey, yes.
Stacy,
Stacy Damaris, yes.
Ryan,
Ryan, yes.
Mike,
Mike Scaduto, yes.
Bob,
Bob Romley, yes.
and Steve Moore, yes. Motion carries. Go ahead, Mark.
Fine. So, do you want me to share my screen, or do you have the amendment information available?
I'll let you share your screen. Yep. Let me unshare. Go ahead and do that. Still yours, Mark.
Thank you. Okay, so we are looking at amendment number 1 for the project. And typically, the process is, and we'll talk about it with amendment number 2, is that for reimbursable services for additional work for Studio G, we get proposals in from their subconsultants. We review it with Studio G, we approve it, We bring the amendment to the committee. We recommend that the scope and fee for this is acceptable. The committee gives us the approval. They proceed with the work, then they invoice it. For amendment number 1, unfortunately, we overlooked that first step. Stuff came in towards the end of July. We didn't get it in front of you guys for the meeting in August, and the work has proceeded and has been completed. And now they would like to invoice this as well as getting the amendment approved. So step 1 is if the committee could approve amendment number 1 in the amount of $51,398, which you see in the bottom here, for services for site surveys, traffic studies, and hazardous material building surveys for the project.
I make a
Uh,
motion.
My first question is, do you recommend this for approval, Mark?
Yes, this document is what was sent over to Ryan with us submitting that we reviewed it and we're approving this amount. And this is the actual amendment, just breaking down the numbers. And then the signature already came from Studio G. We just need the owner to sign it. And then they proceed with the work, and attached is all the proposal information. So we do have a cover letter, recommending that this be approved. And then this is just a breakdown of the numbers.
Okay.
Do we have all
motion to
those
approve?
survey results somewhere?
I'm sorry, say again?
Do we have those survey results somewhere? I feel like I haven't heard us talk about them too much, so.
Yeah, a lot of the information was included in the PDP, but these services carry through schematic design. So this goes on for the entirety of this first phase for the project. So the site survey work, I believe, is 100% or close to 100%. I don't think they've billed 100% yet. And Merrill or Mary Lee, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but the traffic study, I believe, is pretty close to being completed or is completed. And hazardous material might be ongoing as well.
So just
Okay.
to clarify, Mark, this is not approval of the invoices, it's just approval to include this in Studio G's scope of work.
Correct. This is approval of the scope and fee for reimbursable services for Studio G. They
So
hired
this
the consultant. They have a markup that they're entitled to by the contract to add to that fee. We've reviewed this, we're accepting this, we're asking for you to approve the scope and fee. We also have invoices that came in for this scope, which, as I mentioned, we overlooked this at the beginning, but would like to get the approval of the proposal for this amendment and also the approval of the invoices. That won't be the process going forward. We do have another amendment tonight, which is just the scope and fee. And then once that work is done, we get the invoices, then we ask you for approval of the invoices.
Did you say you're looking for approval of the invoices as well?
Yes,
But you said the survey is not 100%. How do
no,
we?
but they build whatever they build, 80% because again, a lot of this work was included for the PDP.
So I just want to clarify, this is not basic services. So our basic services are, this is in addition to, so there's an allowance that was allocated as part of the project. This is within that allowance. So Mark, if you want to elaborate on that, or Suresh, or
Yeah, this isn't extra to the project. This is
right.
reimbursable services that per their contract, they're allowed to do. And the way we structured the contract, we had $150,000 set aside for just these reasons.
Mhm.
These are typical reimbursable services for survey work, traffic work, hazardous material work, geotechnical, geoengineering. You'll see those as we go on to the next amendment. But these numbers are covered. This isn't money we're asking extra. This is money, and I can show you the invoicing, the budget that we have that's tracking all of these numbers. But so this money is not being asked to be added to. We're covering this in the budget.
Yeah.
It's just that we overlooked getting your approval on this number before they actually did the work. And that was our mistake. Going forward, we won't be doing that. We're gonna, like tonight, I want amendment number 2 for you to approve just for scope and fee. Then when those invoices come in, we'll ask for payment once the work is done. The way it's structured, the owner is supposed to approve work, additional work, prior to the work actually getting done. We just overlooked that one step this time. So if you could agree to the amendment number 1 here in this amount, then we have invoices for amendment number 1 that would also like to be approved because that work has been completed. Then that's the step we'd like to take for this amendment number one.
Well, I'm a little confused, Mark, because we just approved an invoice for Studio G. Is this not
That's-
included?
Yeah, that's their basic services, Steve. They have basic services that like we do, every month we do a certain amount of work for that month that we bill you for the basic services. This is reimbursable services, extra work that Studio G manages with their consultants. It's per their contract. Articles, I think it's 4, 8, and 9 explains everything about additional reimbursable extra work for the architect, because they don't carry as a basic service a site survey or a traffic study or a hazardous materials survey. That's extra. But we knew that going into this. We have the money set aside for it. Now they're doing the work and we're looking for approval of the scope and approval of the invoice.
Well, we can't approve the invoice without an invoice from Studio G.
We have it. Yeah, we submitted those.
It's not on the warrant.
Wow. Okay. Wow. They were,
I saw it sent out earlier, I think.
all right. This.
Yeah, actually, page 2. Yeah, page 2. So this is for the additional. So you can see traffic on the left. That's the amount. 6820. So I just also want to explain, none of this is out of the ordinary. This is expected. This happens on all MSBA projects, that these services are as additional services. There's
We're
nothing out
not-
of the
we're not-
ordinary here.
We're not questioning the services or the amounts. We're just saying that we can't approve this outside it not being presented in a warrant.
I see. Okay, the information was submitted, and unfortunately, if this didn't get added to the warrant, then we can take a step back, and if you can approve amendment 1 for the scope and fee, approve amendment 2 for the scope and fee, then we can talk about how we can get these invoices approved either before another month, not another
Yeah.
month. You know.
And Steve, I think what it was that we couldn't put it into a warrant until we had it's sort of chicken and egg thing. So the reason why Michelle couldn't put it onto a warrant is that we didn't have an approved amendment. So I think when we talked about it, I think with Michelle and I understanding this was a bit of an unusual circumstance, I think the first step would be to approve the amendment, saying that it would be okay. And then, even though it is correct, it is not on a warrant, it can't be placed on the warrant until such point that you, or the committee, I should say, approves of the amendment. So, that's up to you as to how you want to handle it.
Well, we can approve the amendment and then say that I think we can approve the amendment and then say, since the committee approved the amendment, the associated charges can be paid.
I think that would work.
Okay,
So,
so we need a vote on amendment 1 in the amount of $51,398.
So moved.
Seconded.
All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Michelle,
Michelle Kane, yes.
Steve,
Steve Venuti, yes.
Kelly,
Kelly Clenchey, yes.
Stacy,
Stacy Demaris, yes.
Ryan,
Ryan, yes.
Mike Scuduto,
Mike Scannino, yes.
Bob,
Bob Ramo, yes.
and Steve Moore, yes. Motion carries.
Thank you, everybody. And as we just discussed, now this is the invoicing that is part of amendment number 1, was submitted by Studio G, was reviewed and accepted for the traffic, the site study, and the hazardous material. The amounts are highlighted. Traffic study, $6,820. Site survey, $20,735. Hazardous materials, $9,817.50 for a total of $37,372.50. So this work has been done. Most of it was included in the PDP, but some of it will be used as we go forward.
So that's 37 against the 51.
Correct.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve?
So,
Does that have to be submitted for the warrant?
Well,
Yeah, I mean, we can do it, you know, we've already approved the amendment 1, so is this, are we still talking amendment 1 or is this amendment 2?
It's amendment 1 still. Yep, correct.
Okay, all right, so I think, I thought the first motion we had made also then allowed us to, with the amendment that allowed us to process this, because I thought that's what Stephen had suggested at the beginning of this. But we can approve of
you know,
it too.
I think, you know, because we're only meeting once a month, we have to find some way to get around these technicalities.
Right.
And as long as we, as a committee, vote, I think we're okay.
I think Stacy made the motion and I can second it.
Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Michelle,
Michelle Kane, yes.
Steve Venuti,
Steve Venuti, yes.
Kelly,
Kelly Clenchey, yes.
Stacy,
Stacy Maris, yes.
Ryan,
Ryan Ferrara, yes.
Mike,
Mike Scudetto, yes.
Bob,
Bob Romo, yes.
and Steve Moore, yes. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, everybody. Sorry for the confusion. This won't be happening again going forward. So now we also have amendment number 2 for work that needs to progress. Amendment number 2 is in the amount of $29,700, and it is for for civil preliminary soil testing and for $6,600, and we're carrying an allowance for the proposal has 2 days of work. We're carrying an allowance for an additional day if they need it for $3,300. This may not come to pass, but in case they do, we want to make sure it's covered right now. And then geotechnical engineering for surveying the excavated test pits to make sure that they're correct for the work that needs to be done. And similar to that, in case there's an extra day that's needed for reviewing the excavation of the test pits, is another $6,600 on top of the $13,200. So this is a scope and fee only, no invoicing, that for $29,700 to get the okay for Studio G to give the okay for these consultants to proceed with their work.
And I take it, Mark, that you are recommending for approval?
Correct. Recommended for approval. Yes, sir. Same with the cover letter on the front.
Okay.
Recommending approval for amendment number 2.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved for scope.
Steve has his hand up.
I have a question specifically on the add alternate 2. Can you just explain what that is? Because is that paying for an excavation with the excavator? Because my understanding was DPW was doing that. So I just want to be clear what that is.
I can speak to that. So it's add all 2. So essentially, if it's a worst case scenario. So in the sense, if DPW isn't available, isn't around, if a third day is needed, if their equipment can't get to where they need, and geoengineers needs to bring in their equipment, that's worst case scenario. So that's adult 2.
Okay.
Also carried in adult 1. I think it was 3,000. So it's some variation. Again, we're not sure what's going to be realized, but this is kind of worst case scenario. And it's all explained down below in the attachments.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
So to build on Steve's question,
Yeah.
What triggers add alternate 1 and 2? I mean, it has to have some kind of approval from somebody on the committee or someone at
So
the
we're doing
school board.
Right. So we're doing and that's kind of why we're asking for approval here and now, because it's going to happen quickly. It's happening next week, actually. These excavations, there's already been dig safe staked out on the campus, on the site, the parcel. So essentially what's happening is there's 2 days of excavation. They think they can do it all in 2 days, but there may need to be a third day. And we're not going to be able to come back and ask for your approval. So we're asking for that now. There's 15 to 16 test pits, and they think they can do 5 or 6 a day, if not more. It depends on what happens at those test pits. So essentially, it's allowing the possibility that a third day may be needed. I'm happy to answer other questions. It's all in the information below as well in the attachment. So that's why this is a worst case. That 3,300 line may not get realized, and the 6,600 line won't get realized if they can do it all in 2 days, which they think they can. However, who knows? It's all underground, right?
So to Steve's point, he asked if DPW was doing this work, and you said if they can't, this is what they're going to charge.
Can you scroll down? Actually, I'm not sure whose screen we're looking at where it shows these alternates. This is Samiotis's. So here,
Yeah, which one do you want? Geoengineering or semiotis?
geoengineer, because I think that's where the question is about the. Oh, okay, stop there. So do you see adult 1 is test pit excavation, and that is assuming essentially that there will be DPW doing this. And then at the top of that row, that column, that 3,500 mark, I don't know if I'm. Yeah, the subcontractor costs and expenses. So if we need to use geoengineers equipment, their operator, there's an additional 3,500. So does that kind of answer the delta? We may only need the lump sum of 12,000. If the extra day is needed, that's where the daily rate is observed. And that's where the adult is activated, if you will, for both this and then also Samiotis, the civil engineer. Does that answer your question, Steve? I just want to make sure we're satisfying your curiosity.
It doesn't answer mine. How about yours, Steve?
They are, the DPW was helping us out with the test pits, digging, the excavating for the test pits. If in 2 days it can't be done, and then for some reason the DPW isn't available to help us, this is just covering us in case we need to do additional test pits.
Right.
So we may end up using this amount, we may not end up using this amount.
Right.
But we'd like to make sure that this is covered in case we need to use that amount.
Right.
So,
Okay, but in order to get approval to proceed with that activity, I would want somebody from the town, maybe Ryan, to have final say on that.
well, that should be reflected in the invoicing, right? I mean, when the invoices come in for this work, the invoice will be $12,000, or it'll be, you know what I mean? It's
The not to exceed amount, right? Is
well,
that-
no, it's a lump sum fee with additional alternates in case we
Right.
need them.
Mhm.
So this is just getting the approval for us to proceed. If they end up not using all of this, then the invoice will be, you know, what the invoice will reflect that.
Right.
But my question is, if proceeding with add alternates 1 and 2 is contingent on DPW doing the work or not doing the work, and you are on site and, you know, the economy of scale and whatnot, to proceed with the work at this unit cost, you need to get some authorization from the town. I would think that Ryan might be the right person for that.
Okay.
Does that sound logical?
Well, it does. If we find out after the end of 2 days we need an additional day, it would be good to communicate with that with somebody and get the approval. Absolutely.
Mhm.
That's assuming DPW isn't available for a third day.
Right.
Correct.
There's a lot of what ifs. What if the weather, doesn't allow for the borings to happen? And then it might bump into the following week and someone may not be available. Or DPW may be preoccupied. We have it set up. We can control the weather.
I just don't want the control of the activity to be outside the township. I want it to be within the township.
Agreed. Right, so we'll monitor what the excavations in the test pit work next week, and if we know we're going beyond that, we'll contact Ryan and inform them that, yes, an additional day is needed, and if DPW is available or not.
So you're looking for motion to approve this?
Correct. We're looking for a motion to approve $29,700 for amendment number 2 for this soil testing and test pit observation and potential allowances for these subconsultants for Streetergy.
That's not to exceed, contingent upon approval by the township.
Yes, perfect.
Can you clarify one thing? It says $13,200 here, and on the other one, it says $12,000.
Well, that's their, Studio G is allowed a 10% markup, working with their consultants. That's the 10% markup.
Any other questions? Is there a motion to approve?
I
So
can,
We had a motion already.
Yeah. Okay.
oh,
You need
All
a
right,
vote.
well, okay. All in favor, roll call, Michelle?
Steve, maybe we need to clarify that motion. It was pretty general. Up to you.
So is there a motion to approve not to exceed $29,700 for Studio G to proceed with the work identified in this document, contingent upon township approval of any of the ad alternates?
Yeah, so moved.
Second.
Can I just clarify? Town approval would be by way of phone call, verbal approval from Ryan?
However Ryan wants to set it up, and then he can notify the committee.
Okay, thanks.
But, you know, we, understanding that time is of the essence, we need to have some kind of checks and balances, but we need to be able to kind of be flexible.
Thank you.
So a roll call vote, Michelle,
Michelle Kane, yes.
Steve,
Stephen Nudi, yes.
Kelly,
Kelly Clenchey, yes.
Stacy,
Stacey Damaris, yes.
Ryan,
Brian Ferrara, yes.
Mike,
Mike Scaduto, yes.
Bob,
Bob Rumley, yes.
and Steve Moore, yes. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all very much. Marilee, you want to take over for the presentation?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing on the list is actually the meeting length. And so we definitely try to keep things brief, but there are some cases where, especially meeting every month, that some discussions will go longer, especially if we get into lengthy discussions with invoices or there's technical issues or anything that may happen. So we would like to block out an hour and a half for these meetings. And I know Stacy has a hard stop at 8, so if we could maybe start at 6:30.
I don't think an hour and a half is necessary. I'd like to keep it to an hour maximum.
Then could we possibly meet more than once a month? I think it's one or the other, really, given the material that we're needing to cover.
You know, I'll leave that up to the committee.
I mean, as we can see, we have a lot to cover, and we have 20 minutes. And I think there's a lot, really. We want your input. We want your feedback. This is your town, right? We're trying to get the information that we're communicating and selling this to selling it to the community as much as possible. So we're doing a lot of work, and we can't go too far without your feedback, your royal collective feedback and input. And we have been having meetings with the district, with Michelle.
Make it as brief as possible.
All right, I'm going to keep it moving then.
Okay.
All right, so we always share the project goals just to remind ourselves of what we're doing, but I will breeze on past. Here's the schedule. We are now into September, halfway through September. We have been working with school personnel, so that's Kelly and Michelle, Beth Steele, Lynn Snow and Rebecca Deacon to try to find efficiencies in the space program. And I'll show you that a little bit later, trying to find ways to save square footage and working towards tightening everything up so that when we get our next cost estimate, it'll be a lower number. We are expecting at the end of this week MSBA comments back on the PDP. We don't anticipate anything too unusual, just pretty basic comments that they always give, and we'll be able to handle that. And what we really need to ramp up now is community outreach. We will be having the joint town leadership meetings next month on the 16th and the 23rd. The reason we had two was both to keep them informed, keep them in the loop. We don't want to have the situation where they feel like decisions have been made and it's too late for them to give input. So we're having two meetings. The first one will be before we get the cost estimate back. So that's going to be about design updates and also about sustainability and beginning those talks. And then the second meeting, we will have costs back at that time. So that will be a cost review. Yes, Mark.
Just want to clarify that the meeting on the 16th is an actual Shaker Lane School Building Committee meeting. So we will be proving invoices, doing the things that we need to do, plus presenting everything that you just talked about. So.
Okay, thank you. And then we are also preparing for the special town meeting on the 29th, which we understand is just a brief 10-minute or so update on where we are with the project. Any comments on the schedule before I move on?
When you say special town meeting,
So that's the town meeting on the 29th, and we are giving just a brief update. I'll be there in person giving an update about the MSBA process, where people can go to get more information. I think by that time we'll have a little bit more information about community outreach, so telling people where they can give feedback, that sort of thing.
Okay, is that a special town meeting or just town meeting?
No, it's a special town meeting. Marley's right. It's special. So it's off, not our annual. That usually takes place in May.
Okay, thanks.
At that time, we will not be showing any design options or anything about what the building will look like. This is more keeping the community involved about the process. Anything else?
Steve, is that October 23rd meeting, PMBC meeting night?
It is, but we'll probably have to postpone PMBC and, in deference to this.
All right. So next, we would like to ask you to establish a community outreach subcommittee. That should probably be around 3 people, although I know Mark has experience with much larger subcommittees. And now we have this time to really start ramping up and trying to build support for the project. And the way we have to do that is by keeping people informed. Due to this being a public project, TTH and Studio G can't help campaign for the project. It would be a conflict of interest, but what we can do is support you with graphics and help provide content or text, or I recently did graphics for a postcard that's being sent out to all the Littleton residents. So if we could please establish a subcommittee to handle that, because that's going to be a lot of communication, mostly done by email, I think, rather than the full committee.
Didn't we discuss this a couple of months ago, and we decided we weren't going to have a subcommittee, we were just going to do that through the school department?
You're right. It was a couple of months ago. And at the time, our needs were not that great. And so we decided that I believe Ryan and Kelly would be helping with the communication. But now we have a much greater need for communication and outreach. I think we kind of pushed that decision off, but I think now's the time.
And I can speak to that. Thanks, Mary Lee. We've been talking about this internally, and I come from a belief that our Shaker Lane administration and some staff need to be involved in the communication process as well as myself. And I've had a school committee member, Janine Wood. You met her at our last meeting, and she's willing to help out as well. Stacy, you're welcome to jump on board too, but I know how busy you are. And Ryan, we're going to need a town representative, so if you wouldn't mind just staying on the as in the capacity you're currently doing, that would be great. And for those of you that perhaps don't know this, we did create a postcard that's going to be sent to every household in town, and the postcard will contain a QR code so they can access the Shaker Lane Building website, and they can also ask questions as well, and those questions will be fielded by Studio G. Michelle, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, happy to, Kelly. So I have about 3 or 4 staff members that are willing to be on this committee, along with me, Kelly, and Ryan, as well as Rebecca Deacon. I think we just need a little bit more direction. And on the postcard generated from us, that was something that we thought of. Maybe, Marilee, you could give us some ideas, because I did not know the direction to, when I asked the teachers yesterday who is interested. I just didn't know the time commitment, the duties, the roles, the responsibilities. So maybe just a 2-minute overview of what they would be responsible for. I could get back to them.
Sure. Actually, now that you're saying this, it almost seems like more people on the committee is better, because then whoever is available and has the time could just swoop in and do whatever needs to be done at the time. So this list right here on the screen is just a brainstorm list that we put together of the people that may want to be involved. We are already starting to have meetings with, for instance, the Board of Health. We met with them for the septic system. So it's a mix of reaching out to town departments and keeping them involved, but also reaching out to residents, seniors, parents, people who are actually involved with the school, and then people who are not involved with the school. And things like letting us know when there's events that we might possibly want to set up a table at, or a tent, or come and give just an informational talk. We could appear on the Littleton TV channel and do an interview on there. So there's a ton of different ideas and things that we can do, but I think probably to facilitate this, I could set up a shared Google document and everybody can participate, and then we can go from there and sort of assign out who does what.
Yeah, that sounds good. I can bring that back to them. I think they just wanted some direction, but are happy to generate ideas and add to the things that you mentioned that they could help out with.
You
So in
might want
terms
to add
of-
Littleton Community TV to that list as well, because that could be a good partner.
I would add to this, Kate Jacobson from PRC put something in the Q&A saying that she'd be willing to be involved in this as well.
Okay.
Oh, perfect.
So I think if we establish the main people in the SBC who will be sort of the head of the subcommittee, and then everybody else outside of this group can also be involved, and that way we have people accountable to the SBC to report on progress.
Sure. Well, that would be Michelle, Ryan, and myself. You're fine with that, Ryan?
Fine.
Thank you.
Okay, in that case, I'll be setting up some Google documents and sharing it with you, and then we can pull in other people.
I think, how about the Parks and Rec guy who came to one of our visioning sessions? In the sense, the people with kids know that possibly that this is going on. It's reaching the people who don't know that this is going on. So it's really getting all ages, levels, siblings. So a wider generational spread, I think, is important. The librarian would be great. They know everything about what's going on in town. Someone from the senior center would be awesome too. So I think little bits and pieces to kind of disseminate the information is ideal.
Do we need to vote on those 3 people being the main core of this group?
You are establishing a subcommittee that will follow the rules of meeting law, so yes.
So are we done with the subcommittee?
So someone would make a motion to create the community outreach subcommittee, identify the people that are on it, and then vote to accept that?
Mark, can I just ask, what, are we talking about just the people here or the additional staff members from Shaker Lane?
Well, I think maybe we craft it where we say that the members of the school building committee and others that, you know, would like to attend and be part of the community outreach group. I don't know if you can name every one of them now because there's going to be more people coming in and out. And I think Marilee made a great point that there'll be times when people can't have a quick meeting, have a quick phone call, and be others to do it. So, the essential core group plus all those that want to be included. However you want to strike the language, you know. But Suresh has a comment. Suresh?
If I can make a suggestion, you might want to call it a subgroup, and then the subcommittee is there, but the working group is a working group which works with the subcommittee, so that we're not, you know, as far as you have a working group, you can have meetings without posting them, and then the subcommittee meets to decide, which is a shorter group of people. So that way you're not restricted to having, you know, posting every meeting, every time you have to have sit down and discussion with other people in the group.
It's a great idea.
So Mark, I'm going to leave it to you to craft the motion.
Okay. The creation of a communication or community outreach subcommittee. Core members being Dr. Kelly Clinchy, Principal Michelle Kane, and Assistant Town Administrator Ryan Ferrara as the core working group, with support by additional participants that would like to be part of the subcommittee. That was
So moved. So moved.
Okay, a second.
Second.
Thanks for the delay action. Roll call vote. Michelle?
Michelle Kane, yes?
Steve?
Stephen Nudie, yes.
Kelly?
Kelly Clenchey, yes.
Stacy?
Stacy Damaris, yes.
Ryan?
Ryan Ferrara, yes.
Mike?
Mike Scaduto, yes.
Bob?
Bob Romley, yes.
And Steve Moore, yes. Now, before we continue, do we have any other things that we have to vote on since Stacy has a hard stop at 8 o'clock?
Not from us.
No, sir, I do not believe so. More of rest of it's informational.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. All right. So first order of business for the community outreach is to draft or really craft frequently asked questions for the website. Usually these lists have some general questions, general information. A lot of these are very nicely covered in the video that you already have, but sometimes people don't like to watch videos, so we also can put it in text. And then there's a list of specific questions that are specific to this project, questions that you know the residents are going to have, questions that you have been hearing a lot just in the town. This is a beginning list that we have thought of. If there's anything else you want to add to this, I will be setting up a shared Google document and sharing it with the subcommittee. And once we're happy with it and satisfied with the wording and everything's all right, then it will go live on the website. Any initial thoughts on this? Okie dokie.
I think it's a good start. It's a good start. So I think maybe some other things we can supplement it with, but I think this is a great core piece to start with.
Yeah,
sure.
and it's, it'll be evolving. So if something comes up and we need to add to this, we can definitely do that. Oh, and I believe Kelly had mentioned that on the postcard, there's a QR code to the website. There is a link set up now where I think the text is make your voice heard. And it's just an open-ended, what do you want the design team to know? And so far we have not received any comments yet, but those postcards have not arrived anywhere yet, but I'll be keeping an eye on that. And every time we have one of these meetings, I'll give you an overview of what people are saying, if there's anything that urgently needs to be addressed or answered or anything like that. All right. So next, the work that Kelly and Michelle and Lynn, Beth, and Rebecca have been doing has begun to really decrease the square footage of the building. What we're doing is looking for ways that we can be more efficient with the space, ways where we can save space, or perhaps take use and shift it somewhere else and then compress things a little bit. So as a reminder, where we started out, we have the existing Shaker Lane square footage, and then we have the MSBA baseline, and that was the 73,845. And a comment that I've made a couple of times is that the MSBA does not include preschool spaces in that number, and they include only a very bare minimum for special ed spaces. That's because they assume every district has very specialized special ed needs, and so they want districts to customize their program by adding specific spaces for this. So what I really wanted to do is give you a more reliable number for what the absolute bare minimum should be, because it's not the 73,000 number. So what I did was took each section and added things. I'll explain how I added them. The MSBA gave 13 classrooms for grades 1 and 2. And so we would be adding one classroom so that it's 7 and 7, just equal between the two grades. So that's 950 square feet. In the special education category, I took these 4 spaces right here are spaces that Shaker Lane already has right now. This is the program that they have right now. And then I applied proper sizes to them. So for example, right now in Shaker Lane, there's 6 offices for various special ed people or specialists and support staff, but some of them are really small. One of them I think is 74 square feet. So if I gave them all 150 square foot size, which is what the MSBA uses for other offices, and you give a 500 square foot real size to the classroom, if you take all these spaces that they have, give them proper size them correctly, then that adds 3,500 square feet to the special education category. And then lastly, I added 3,600 for 3 preschool classrooms. So if you add all of this together, you get 85,922. And this is really the number that we should be considering as the absolute base. Can't go below that number. So then that, as a reminder, that first iteration that we had that went out for cost at the end of PDP, we were at 103,876. And then with the work that we've been doing with the Shaker Lane School, we have gotten it down to 97,700. And this is an explanation of where we found savings. A lot of that was either taking spaces and removing a little bit of square footage from each one of them, or it was removing spaces that they know for sure they don't need. Like, for example, the MSBA gives 3 small practice rooms to the music program, but the Shaker Lane School, students of that age don't really use them. They become more useful when you start getting into band, a little bit older kids. So usually at elementary schools, those rooms just become storage and fill up with junk. So we took those out. And then we thought about things like the learning dens is a shared communal space for all of the teachers in a grade level to use. So we're thinking about how we can take space out of take activities out of the classroom, push them into the den, and save square footage that way. So with all these different methods, this is sort of the low-hanging fruit of space savings that we can make pretty easily without causing anybody pain, without cutting any program. We've saved about 6,000 square feet to this. And as we continue to work with this design, that number is going to shrink a little bit more. So we're moving in the right direction, trying to control the cost of the building and make sure that we're not wasting any space, making sure that we're getting the maximum value. Any comments on this so far?
I would request that we look at the custodial and storage space and not cutting it that much. I'd like to see the plans, I guess, or have a conversation about that spaces, because there's never enough storage space for stuff. So to cut it down, I think I'm not sure I agree with that, but that's just my opinion.
Okay, and that's a fair question. And one thing that this little chart doesn't show is all of the other custodial spaces that the MSBA allows. So just for comparison, right now you've got 715 square feet for this category, and the MSBA gives, am I looking at the right column? Yeah, the MSBA gives 1660, so more than twice that. So cutting out one room doesn't feel as bad because he doesn't have that right now anyhow, and he's still getting way more space.
Oh, okay.
But we should
I
look at
did-
this more.
Okay, I didn't understand that. So, okay,
Oh,
thank you.
totally. Yep.
Yeah,
And
Steve-
that's the kind of thinking we've been doing on all of these.
Steve, we're looking at all of the different spaces, so we have you covered on that. Just so you know.
Kelly, were you saying something? I think you got muted.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. I was just saying that I wanted Steve to know that we're looking at all spaces and we're doing whatever we can to ensure that we have sufficient storage space and other spaces for education. So no worries there. We're not gonna build something that isn't going to be sufficient for storage.
Okay, thank you.
These are great questions. Anybody else on this before I move on? Okay. Next, this is an update. I think somebody, Stacy, I believe, was asking about the survey that had been done. These lines here show the updated survey along with the wetland flagging that happened. And some interesting things that we found. This line back here is the approximate location of the wetland buffer that appears on the town's GIS website. The wetlands were actually back here, and then this is 100 feet away from that. So when we were doing the design of the options, we thought we had all this space and all of this space. Turns out your wetlands are growing. This wet area here has sort of expanded and now is connected to this. And this is the new line of the buffer. So it really doesn't impact the upper field option very much. There's still plenty of room up here. But the lower field, the buildable area has really shrunk. And the two tones of green right here sort of represent the flat area versus the sloped area of that site. We did some calculations and some massing, and we believe we can still fit a school into this expanded space, but it would be 3 stories. Now, because there's a slope on the site, we could arrange it so that you enter on the middle floor, and that's where all of the main community spaces are. And then we could keep the preschool on that floor and put the preschool play area sort of around here so that you just walk out. Nobody has to go up or downstairs for that. Then we could put the kindergarten on the lower level, and that would also be walkout, but it would be down at this lower level out to the field area, and then put grades 1 and 2 up on the 3rd floor. So any one student, except when they're trying to be a 1st or 2nd grader trying to go outside to the back area, they wouldn't have to go more than one set of stairs. So sort of taking a 3-story building and making it best case scenario for as many kids as possible. So we're still going to pursue this. We're still getting pricing on this. That will be one of the 3 options that we get estimated, but we wanted to make you aware of the new wetland information and the impact it's going to have on that option. Any questions or comments?
How old is the old wetland information?
That's a good question. I tried to find it on the GIS website, and it wouldn't let me select it to sort of get information on it. So I'm not sure when that was done.
Seems like a pretty dramatic increase.
Yeah. I mean, part of it is this is just the buffer. This is 100 feet from it. So this is really gradual slope up in here. So a very small rise in the water and the vegetation that goes along with it really has a large impact on where the buffer is. And then the other thing I want to point out is that this is very steep right here. So even though the wetlands are here, it's not going to grow up into this area because it's limited by this slope. It's more likely that it's going to continue seeping out in this direction if it does continue growing.
So with the updated flagging too, what would that, how would that impact some of the playing fields that we were or originally designed here?
So you can put playing fields within the buffer. You can put playgrounds within the buffer. You just can't put like a building with a foundation in the buffer.
Okay.
So you still have space for those.
Okay.
Any other thoughts on this?
Do you have any concerns with what you see, Mary Lee? Or are you fine with what you have here?
I think if we were really hoping for this site, I would be a little more concerned. I think that even this boundary that I've drawn is still a little, you know, it's possible we could build up in here and use the space as well, and we would just have to figure out where to put the playground while the building is being built. So we're not totally, maybe we're not as limited as possible. This is just sort of rough eyeball. But I am happy to see that it's only this corner taken out of the upper field, and there's still plenty of space up here. Actually, I did a sort of a comparison of the size of the space versus the footprint of the building footprint that we've been working on up here, and they're about the same size, which tells me that if we move to a 3-story building, it can definitely fit here. I would be a little worried about any zoning requirements that limit buildings to 2 stories. However, because it is a school use, we can basically say, well, because it's a school, we're allowed to do this, even though your zoning says otherwise. Obviously, we'd rather work within the zoning that's already in place and not just sort of run slipshod over that. But it is, it's still an option that we could pursue if it comes down to it, if this ends up being a much less expensive option for some reason.
So Mary Lee, a few slides ago, you had the square footage going down from 103 down to 97, savings of 6,000 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
Did that take into account the 3rd story with the additional stairwells and toilet rooms?
Yes, because that is just part of the grossing factor. This allows you to figure out space programming without doing calculations for stairs, for toilet rooms, for the walls that you have to build. It's just the grossing factor is 1.5, which means you take the program square footage and you multiply it by 1.5, and that gives you the total square footage to expect for the building. It's a pretty good planning number. 1.5 is the maximum that the MSBA allows, so we know that it won't go over that, and we can rely on that number.
Okay, thanks.
The new square footage, how much does that knock off an estimated price?
You mean to go to, oh, from the $6,000?
It was what?
Yes, that's
$8,000 a square foot or something?
Was it like 857, I think?
Yeah.
857.
There you go. 5 million.
That's the hope.
That's the hope.
The hope, yeah.
Doesn't always happen.
No.
But it's a move in the right direction.
Yep.
Yep. It helps. So
Yes. All right. So if there's anything else, we're just about done here. Last is just the district action items. We've already established the subcommittee. We talked about a little bit of this action plan, but we'll be doing more of that once I set up the shared Google document. One thing that we'd really like you to do is for sustainability, and I'll let Meryl talk to you about that.
Yeah, so we've been starting to hear a lot about the IRA. There's different incentives. Littleton has incentives potentially with their electric department. So this is something that is beyond our scope as design team and also our OPM as well. So it involves taxes. That's not what I do. Pay someone to do that. So there's tax incentives as part of the the incentive program. And there's a lot of different incentives out there, and we're going to need your help as far as getting someone who is passionate about this. So essentially what we're looking for is these different technologies. So ground source heat pumps, air source heat pumps, these are geothermal wells. You know, if this is something we want to pursue, there's money in it, actually. So when we start talking about money and how much things are going to cost, there's these incentives. So what we're needing is there's organizations. There's one called Undaunted, and they do a lot of K through 12 programs in schools as far as helping with these incentive programs and just understanding the realization of what can come about as an incentive. So again, we're going to need to work with someone in the district to see what comes to fruition. We can't fill out the forms. Mark, I'm sure, has input on this. But essentially there's a lot of money on the table from different grants, incentives that maybe you've done Mass Save on your house. We can't do Mass Save here because of the municipal light and water, but perhaps you've done this on your own house. So there is money available. We're just going to need to work with someone internally in the town of Littleton to see this to fruition.
I think we know somebody that might fill the bill.
Are they on this call is the question, or did we just volunteer them, right?
Meryl, I just wanted you to mention about Lee too, and about stuff that's coming up, you know, to talk about that information.
I want to hear from Steve Moore first. This is a hot item, but we're gonna talk about LEED in a moment, but maybe we can just kind of, because we're going to bring this up again at our next school building committee, and it is the joint committee. I've invited the chair of the sustainability, Sarah. Maybe that's who you're thinking of. So I'm trying to include these folks who have the drive, the interest, the passion. We need a champion, really, to help us with
So the chair of the select board
Mark.
would be your candidate.
Karen? Is that
Or
Mark
Robichaud, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is great. It's better to position ourselves now. And maybe, Mike, you have some thoughts about this as well. But it's basically good to position yourself, because as we're picking these systems and as we're picking the incentives, we want to make sure that we're getting the most bang for our buck beyond the MSBA, what the MSBA is giving the district. So,
Meryl, did you have any luck? I know I've given you the information for the our sustainability committee. Were you able to have any conversations with them and determine how they might be able to support you to these ends?
I reached out to Sarah. I haven't heard back from her yet. Maybe I know that she was possibly away, you mentioned, so I'll reach out to her again. Yeah. But yeah, those are the type of
she's back now, but yes, that's Mark's wife. So I know she's got a lot of interest in this as well.
Okay, yeah. Because we're going to be talking about this at our next school building committee, the one that's the joint meeting. So I think this is where Mark Stafford is going. We want to explain the MSBA. We can get extra incentive points or percentages. So right now, if your district is a certain number, we can add 2 percentage points if we do certain measures to get there. So there's different incentives. Everyone wants a sustainable world. So how can we encourage this and save money as well as part of the project goes?
But also the level of, are we talking an all-electric building? Are we talking a net zero building? Are we talking, these things need to be discussed now in order to have that be crafted as part of the design. And having a champion that runs that, assisting us through the process, will make it very successful. If you don't have somebody that has that passion to go through, to follow up these things, sometimes things fall by the wayside, but we should start really thinking more about what level of do we want this building to be, electric, whatever. So with all these information that's out there, take advantage of as much as we need a direction.
Yeah.
So Mark, with that comment, I mean, some of our community that viewed the last meeting, there was a sticker shock, obviously, to the cost. So as we pursue this, do you feel that it wouldn't add additional dollars to the cost of the building? It would be offset by grants or rebates or whatever incentive?
I see Mike shaking his head as well, but essentially it's part of the project, and the incentive rebate happens after the project's complete. So it is the district fronting the money. However, if you do an all electric building, you'll receive the savings for years and years and years. So,
Okay. Yeah.
Mike, I feel like you got something to say there.
No. It depends if the grant runs out. I know Sage Glass, their thing is running out soon.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yep.
okay. Okay. Yeah.
Well, having, you know, a net zero conversation means you need to have solar, you need to have renewables that are gonna offset the cost of the electricity that you're generating for yourself on site. You know, there's a lot of options to do that. I know we talked a lot with the presentations in the community about being as sustainable, you know, and energy efficient as possible. But there is a cost associated with these things. It's not as bad as it used to be, but there is an upcharge to do these things, but your rate of return gets a little bit better when, you know, your electric bills are maybe non-existent. And there's things that you can work on that go into the overall calculation of things, but it's something that we certainly need to look at and add to the cost of the design, no question.
If I remember correctly, the infrastructure for solar is part of the package already?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
All buildings are solar ready, it seems these days. So structurally, they're all solar ready.
Yeah, the code. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
So I just want to talk a little bit more about the action items that are coming up for sustainability. So first step is to sort of identify some of these champions. Then at October 16th, we'll be having a brief overview from our sustainability consultant, probably 10 minutes or so, talking about a few things. And then we're also going to be setting up, we call it a sustainability workshop, but really what it is an informational session to educate people about what all these terms mean and what sorts of things you have to think about when you're choosing systems and just things like that. And so once people are educated and they have some time to think things over, then I think we'll probably need to do perhaps another working group that really focuses on sustainability and really looks in depth at the systems with the help of our HVAC consultant, our sustainability engineer. And when we do this process, we make it, you remember the process that we did when we were evaluating the different options? All these different factors go into that decision. So we're looking at initial costs, long-term costs, life cycle factors, maintenance, all these different things that are going to help make the best decision for the school.
I did nothing. I did nothing.
And then, so lastly, the October 16th, when I say prepare for joint town leadership meetings, that is basically going to be on a level of what happened last time, where Kelly and Michelle said a few words about the project, and it's mostly us giving a presentation about giving these updates. And then same thing on the 23rd when we have the cost information. All right, that's all I have to say. If anybody else has any comments.
Nope. What's next?
That's the end of my show.
You can unshare the screen. I'll just share real quick the
Well, Mark's multitasking. If I can put at the end of the agenda, if we can decide whether we're going to meet twice a month or for 90 minutes, I think the will of the committee is what we should do, in the sense it'll slow down our schedule if we don't get these answers of moving things forward.
So we are currently on schedule. We've revised our schedule a little bit to add a little bit more detail to it. So we're currently in the preferred schematic design stage right now, and we're getting cost information available. We're identifying the meetings that are coming up, information that we have to do to reconcile and review the cost estimates and get ready for the meeting on the 23rd. Information for the special town meeting, identifying subcommittee meetings, building committee meetings, etc., and then the process of getting information back from the PDP, our review period, information put to the facilities assessment subcommittee for the PSR, getting those comments back, and shooting for the board meeting in February. We'll be expanding this a little bit more as more stuff comes along, but currently right now we're doing well and we are on schedule. Budget wise.
Well, Mark, can I just clarify something going back? Because that was a lot that I just wanted to simplify what's happening right now. So
Sure.
essentially, preferred schematic report, we're looking at 3 options. At the end of PSR, we're going to have 1. That's the one that we take through to schematic design. So that's kind of what's happening right now, where we're eliminating, I think you're already sensing that we're eliminating due to one reason or another. So that's what the preferred schematic report is about. And that's why the communication with you all, to make sure that we're not doing this in a box, that we're keeping the communication open. So preferred schematic report, that's the gist of that. And then we go into schematic design where we develop 1 option.
Right, but
Sorry, Mark.
no, it's okay. We take the 3 options.
Yeah.
We recommend a 1 option, working in conjunction with the facilities assessment subcommittee of the MSBA, and speak to them about why we're recommending this 1 option. They agree to that, and that's what gets put forward in schematic design.
Yeah.
So currently, Studio G is right on track of getting all this information put together, and things are going well as far as that's concerned. So we are going to get some comments back from the PDP. I think, as Marilee said, we'll address those as needed, while parallel tasks continuing with the PSI. And we are currently still on budget. Here's the snapshot of the feasibility portion of the budget, identifying the costs, invoices that have been submitted so far, where we are and what we've got left. So out of the $1,085,000, we spent $331,000 so far. We've got about $753 to go. I don't believe this is updated for amendment number 2. This is through amendment number 1. So we're on budget and on schedule, and that does it. Do you guys want to have a quick talk about going 90 minutes or no? I agree that I think 60 minutes should work. We just need to, start on time and get things condensed and get the information out that we really need to talk about.
I think that if that's the case, then what we'll do is make sure that anything that needs to be voted on will be first in our agenda. And that way, if people need to drop off, we can still get the information if the meeting needs to run a little bit longer.
Good idea.
I have been
I'm
in
a
these
little
meetings before that
concerned.
have lasted like 3 hours. So I appreciate the attempt to keep it short.
But
We are efficient, actually. So
what did the joint committee meeting on the 21st go? 2.5, 3? I mean, it was a long meeting. So is the anticipation that the meeting on the 16th will be as long, and the meeting on the 23rd? I mean, the 23rd, Ryan and I spoke about it earlier. The 16th is going to be a regular school building committee meeting with, the other groups coming in. The 23rd is going to be more information, but more, exposure to people that maybe can come in and ask questions, or who are we presenting to? What are we presenting? Who needs to be there? I think we should sort of clarify exactly what needs to happen on the 23rd, outside of what the cost amount is, cost estimates that we should have in at that point. But the 16th is definitely a meeting that might go another couple of hours. And it is a hybrid. We will be in person at the police department's room. So, it is what it is at that point.
Well, my concern about the meeting on the 23rd is if we don't socialize the fact that we're now looking at a 3-story building as opposed to a 2-story building, we're going to be in a very, very long meeting. So we need to understand how we can get that information out well in advance of that meeting.
When you say well in advance, are you talking like a week?
Next week. And I don't know how you do that, but it's just going to be they were blindsided, the last meeting, and they're gonna be blindsided the next meeting if we, don't get that information out there.
Understood. Any other questions, comments, queries, concerns from anybody?
So I think we ought to have another meeting this month because in preparation for the 23rd, I would suggest on the well, let's see, we can't have it. No, can't have it. Maybe the 2nd of October.
Okay.
And what's the proposed agenda?
Well, you know, what we're going to present at the 23rd, how are we going to package it if we haven't already gotten the information out there that we're going with the 3-story building?
Well, we're presenting on the 16th. We have a 16th and the 23rd.
Well, the 16th is just a committee meeting, right?
Well, it's a committee meeting inviting the finance and the school building committee, the school
Yeah,
committee.
but the people that don't show up are going to go, I didn't know anything about this,
Yeah.
and they're going to get into conversations, and the night's never going to end.
Mhm.
So we got to do better than that. We got to plan ahead.
Yeah, we do need to plan ahead. I thought the 16th meeting, we weren't introducing new information, but again, with this potential 3-story build, I agree. If that's a consideration, we need to somehow get that out there. Now, maybe I missed something. I thought there was still an opportunity for a 2-story build on the upper site. Is that
Oh,
correct?
yes, upper site would definitely
right,
still be
thank you.
two stories. Yeah, it's just the
Yeah.
lower field. And actually, if I could make a suggestion, because the SBC has representatives from all of those other town committees, if you could maybe reach out to them and direct them to the recording of this video so they could watch it and just give them a heads up. And maybe that way nobody will feel blindsided. Nobody can say that they had no way of knowing.
Is there another term you can use? I mean, it's a 3-story building in the back. It's
Okay.
not a full 3-story building. It's like a house with a walkout basement. So I don't know if there's a commercial.
It's a basement, below grade story.
Yeah, okay. Because a 3-story building is a little different than what you're talking about with just part of it being step back, step down.
Yeah. It's like a
But
Yeah, I agree with Kelly because you also talked about a 3-story building. A 3-story building was mentioned when you talked about the Whitcomb Field option, and
Right.
that that when that was presented almost, in my opinion, in a negative light. So you don't want to present it as a 3-story building. I agree with Kelly on that.
Right, but what Mary Lee said earlier was this is a result of what the site conditions have changed. This is not they just decided to put a 3-story building here because of the
That doesn't matter.
setbacks.
That
because
doesn't matter to these people.
No, I know, Steve, but the
It
fact
doesn't
is,
matter.
with further investigation, something's changed. Something's changed, and in order to work on the lower field, you may have to go with a 2.5-story, 3-story potential part of the building, and the reason why is the wetlands are too close now, et cetera, so,
And they're going to want to revisit Whitcomb.
Well,
yeah.
I would add that
Yep.
because the Whitcomb site is totally flat, then that's truly a 3-story building. Whereas this site has that slope and it's about 10 feet, and we could make it so that you enter on the second floor, but you can also walk out on the lower level. So it's a completely different site.
So you need, I think you need to be careful about how you describe it. It's a 2-story building with a basement
With a lower level.
with a lower level.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't use the term 3-story building. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, there's sensitivity to building heights in this town.
And actually, one thing that we can provide whenever we meet with them next is a cross section illustrating how that works.
I wouldn't get into too much design detail. They're just going to be interested in, is it 2 stories or 3 stories? They're very myopic.
Suresh, you had a comment?
Yeah, Steve said it correctly. You don't want to be showing too much of it, because if you start saying about costs being less, because we have the foundation, we're going to use part of the foundation for the front of the building, which is below ground. I think it gets into too much, so I just want to keep it 2 stories with a kind of a walkout, and it's I think much easier to, I would say, convince people than the other way around, because 3-story was a very negative connotation the last time, so you don't want to carry that around.
Got to understand your audience here.
It's got 3 floors. They're gonna call it a 3-story building.
Yeah, understood.
Absolutely.
What, okay, do we want to have a get together on the 2nd of October, or?
I think we need
If so,
to.
what will we be discussing?
Well, we need to discuss our approach, and we don't want to go into the 23rd or whatever date it is.
Yeah, okay.
Without a good game plan.
Yeah, Steve, and then just to let you know, I was checking my calendar. It looks like on the 2nd you had a regular PMBC meeting scheduled that night.
No, that's
no.
the first Wednesday.
Okay.
So we meet the 2nd and 4th.
Okay.
So can you help me understand? So we have the 16th. What is that versus the 23rd?
Are you asking me?
Just collectively. So the 16th is an SBC meeting, and then the 23rd is not an SBC. So the 16th is the SBC, you all, with the other 3 committees joining us.
Invoices, etc. The 23rd is informational. It's in person.
So,
So 16th, isn't it?
Yeah,
Right.
16th 's hybrid,
Supposed to be. Yeah. I think
it's
the 16th sets up for the 23rd, and then the 23rd serves as your launching point for your meeting on the 29th. I mean, it's that level of preparation that we're trying to do step by step, providing more inclusiveness and frankly, refining your presentation for the 29th.
So the same members at the 16th are at the 23rd?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
Then we need the 2nd. We need to meet on the 2nd.
oh, for sure. We need to really figure out what information we give on the 16th, because I think it would be a mistake if we're talking about a walkout to just not bring that up at the 16th meeting, because then they're going to feel like they're blindsided again. So how much information do you give them to set up for the bigger discussion on the 23rd?
So the 2nd will be the Shaker Lane School Building Committee prep meeting. It won't be like, we're not going to do invoices. We're not going to be, approving the minutes from before. It's just going to be this group getting together, having a discussion, how far along Studio G has gotten with revising 3-story plans, 2-story plans, whatever, discussing exactly how we're going to present on the 16th.
Strategy meeting.
Strategy. Okay, perfect.
I mean, Mark, I would say I don't necessarily see any harm in throwing some invoices on if you have something you want to get processed too. It's not the
Yeah, no, good, true, very valid
we can
point.
get through that quick, but
Yeah.
but yeah, the primary thing is strategy.
Yeah, okay.
And then just so everybody knows, on the 16th, we invited our sustainability consultant. They're called the Green Engineer. So the idea there was that they would introduce the concept of sustainability, 10 minutes, right? It would kind of be a high level overview. I invited Sarah to that meeting. I invited Littleton Electric and Water to that meeting as well. So just some folks to start stirring the discussion and in preparation for our December sustainability workshop. But agreed, now we have this other level, and we'll be there because we're sending our design to the cost estimators early October. So we'll be there as far as that goes. Steve Martin.
So Meryl, a quick question. You mentioned a couple of times Littleton Electric possible incentives. Have they given you specific information about incentives? Because we have never, ever received an incentive from the Littleton Electric Department for projects, because they don't do incentives. They're not like National Grid or something like that. They don't do incentives.
That's good to know. I won't, it's like a needle in a haystack. I haven't connected with them quite yet. So
Okay.
that was part of this, again, looking for our champions to do this research. So
Okay, I mean, I'm all for inviting them and asking them the question, but
Yeah.
I would be very, very surprised if they came back and said they have incentives, because we have asked
In another
before
lifetime,
about
like,
that, and I see Stephen Udi smiling about this as well. I think he agrees that
well,
Okay.
in
the department does not offer incentives.
in another lifetime, a bunch of years ago, when I was account executive for National Grid's energy efficiency programs for new construction, we had many municipal utilities that we worked with, and not incentives as much, but sometimes they would work with the community and give them discounted light bulbs, and they'd give them something to power strips. Like, they did contribute to the project as much as they thought they could contribute. So I think this could be the conversation with them, especially if you're going to go in an all-electric building. Like, what could they possibly help us with? It may not work, but it's worth the conversation.
be careful though, or else you'll end up with a battery electric storage system on your site.
Yeah,
Like we did in Groton.
Yeah, and
So-
I mean, I don't want to sound like Debbie Downer on the electric department. I'm not. They treat us well. They give us very good rates, etc. But I just don't want people to think that the electric department is stepping up and offering incentives toward a building program, because I would
didn't.
fall off my chair and die of a heart attack if they did. So
We haven't asked yet, so
Okay.
you saved me the
Thank you.
pain and suffering.
Suresh, another comment?
Yeah, I agree with Steve, because this is the conversation we had about 3 months, to at least 3 meetings ago. The local utility companies do not provide any, especially municipal light plants, don't provide any incentives for the schools. That's been our experience all along. The only thing you can get is National Grid, and the question is, are you going gas? That's the only thing you can get from them.
yeah,
So,
that leads to a whole
you know, just-
HVAC question about heat pumps or
Yep.
natural gas rooftop units, and I'm not going to open that right now. But yeah.
Kind of as an aside, when Keith Bergman was the town manager, he somehow found one customer in Littleton, and Steve Venuti may know this, who is on National Grid. And so we got the green incentive.
Correct, and we still work with green communities.
Yeah,
We still are eligible. We still have received, the town we still have received some National Grid rebates on some energy saving programs that we've done.
Yeah.
But those are upgrades to current systems, not new buildings. We can have the conversation with National Grid if they offer incentives toward a new building and going with heat pumps, or, well, not heat pumps because they're all electric, but so National Grid possibly, but again,
Yeah, the answer is yes, they do offer incentives and rebates but are you using gas? If you're not using natural gas, if you're not a customer, you don't
Yeah.
get them, so.
Yeah, that's true. All electric. Yeah. I know Mary Lee is gonna say.
So I actually have 2 things to say. So you have a couple other construction projects going on in the town
Oh, yeah.
now. So some of you have that knowledge already of what's been tried on other projects. So benefiting from that would be great. And then the other thing is, even if they don't offer monetary incentives, there might be something like, if we end up with solar panels, perhaps we can feed back into the grid on weekends or something, and we work something out that's beneficial to everybody. So incentives don't necessarily have to be just money. There's other things that we could look for.
but that doesn't decrease the cost of the building.
Correct. It decreases operational costs long term.
Right.
Anything
Okay.
else, anybody? Motion to adjourn?
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second it.
Okay, roll call vote. Michelle?
Michelle Kane, yes.
Steve?
Stephen Nudi, yes.
Kelly?
Kelly Clenchey, yes.
I think Stacy dropped off, so I'll go to Ryan.
Ryan Ferrara, yes.
Mike?
Mike Scudetto, yes.
Bob?
Bob Rummel, yes.
And Steve Moore, yes. And just before we adjourn, did we decide on the first Wednesday in October is the next meeting?
The second, I
We
think, yeah.
believe we have, yep.
Yep.
Okay, great. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Somebody's gonna need to post that meeting.
What's that?